Hey guys, welcome back to Tiana's Divine Truth. It's great to have you guys back. Today I wanted to talk about my life, basically. But more specifically, I wanted to talk about the lessons that I've been learning over the last month or so. And boy, have they been many. Today, in fact, especially for today was a very, I think, important and pivotal day in my life because I felt like I grew a lot as a person, or more than growing a lot as a person, I saw all of the growth that I did over the last year in 2023. And I saw why it was important that all the things that I wanted to manifest in 2023 didn't happen, because how I'm reacting now versus how I would have reacted then is completely different. It's been a while since I've uploaded a new video, but I've had a lot going on over the last few months. A lot has changed in my life. I've had surgery over the last few months. I've gone back to work over the last few months. And so getting acclimated to the new, to work again, being back in the office again, just like everything. So just finding my balance, finding my pace, getting back into the swing of thing has been a very difficult process. But I've learned a lot over the last few weeks. I'd say I've learned a lot about how much I actually grew at the end of last year, because a lot has changed. But mostly I'd say a lot of the change that I see is internally. Even though I haven't grown outwards as I thought I would be doing, as I'd hoped for, I've definitely grown inwards. But now all the inward journey that I've seen is manifesting externally in how I interact with other people and how I show up in the world and how I'm showing up for myself. I'd say right now in this stage of my life, I'm definitely a lot more balanced, a lot more forgiving, a lot more open-minded. And what I mean by balance is balance in the way that I engage and interact with people, because I suffered from depression, anxiety, how I showed up with other people. I wasn't really showing myself. I felt like I was burdened by projections. I was burdened by negative thoughts in my mind about, oh, what if they think this? Oh, what if I think that? Oh, what, you know what I'm like? And I realized it's hard to be yourself around other people if this is all you're always thinking about. If every time you're always engaging in a conversation, you're thinking about what the other person is going to think. What is the other person going to say? I'm like, what do you want? What do you want to say? What do you want to share? And I feel like, it's so nice not to have to worry about all of that extra stuff. It's so nice not to have to be afraid to speak your mind. It's so nice that if you do speak your mind, you know that, hey, that day probably shouldn't have said that, but it's okay. I can let that go. It's so nice. It feels good to not be in my own head, not having the voices inside my mind dictate not having the voices inside my mind dictate every interaction I make, every statement I say. It's so nice, and it feels good. And I kind of want to share with you guys kind of some of the tips and some of the techniques that I use to get grounded emotionally, get grounded mentally, get grounded through 2023. And I'd say, especially, I think a lot of my emotional, actually, I've always been a little bit more emotional. I couldn't help it. Depression, anxiety, all that stuff. Eventually it changes you from someone who you were into someone you're not, because now instead of being yourself, you're being the depression manifested. You know what I mean? You're the voices that the depression says you are. You're not this. You're too much of this. You're not being enough of this. You're just all of these things except for yourself. And even when you move from a feeling like you're no longer in that depressive state, you still have to take off all of those layers that depression put onto you, all of those preconceptions of, well, you used to do this, so that means you can't do this now. Well, you remember you used to do that, that means you can't do this now. Just because you showed up like that. And then it kind of let me learn this lesson that just because I showed up like this in that stage of my life doesn't mean I can't show up differently. I'm not chained to this version of me from the past. I can be who I was meant to be originally, or who I was going to be originally. I can just take all the lessons that I learned there and not keep the person. I'm not going to let that version, I'm going to step away. I'm going to let go of that version of me, but I'm not going to destroy it, because that version of me is what enabled me to get to this version of me right here. The version of me that is able to, who's able to understand and feel deeply, who's able to say, hey, I went through hard times, but those hard times don't mean that I can't move into lighter, brighter times. That version of me that showed that, hey, I worked hard, I fought hard, I grew, I evolved. And that's that version of me that proves how resilient I am. That version of me that doesn't even, that version of me that doesn't even have all the skills I have now, but look how far they came without knowing everything I know now. Imagine being that version of me right now, who's looking back at the older version of me, who didn't know anything, who didn't understand life, who didn't understand why all these things were falling apart around them, who didn't know any better. And just like sending that version of me so much love and so much compassion for all the things that they didn't know to do, all the things that they didn't know to be, all the things that they didn't know they could ask permission to do, all the things they didn't understand that they could just walk away from, all the things that they didn't know that weren't even theirs to carry, and just be like, wow, look how much you dealt with, look how much look how much you struggled, look how much you grew with all the things that you didn't know, because you struggled with all of that, because you grew from all of that, because you took on so much of those burdens. I'm able to sit here now in a more healed space, having learned all those lessons, and think to myself, wow, isn't that version of me amazing? Isn't that version of me resilient? Isn't that version of me strong? And it's really important, I find, in the healing journey to honor that version of you, because if you don't honor that version of you and you look at it with animosity and with hate, you won't really fully get to appreciate who you transformed into or who you've become, because you're denying yourself the dark part of you. But it was that darkness inside of you that got you to this lighter, brighter, healed space. You can't not. If you always try to emanate from a light space, then you can still be ruled by your shadows. But when you acknowledge your shadows, when you acknowledge those places inside of you that you don't want to look at, those places inside of you that you're like, inside of you that you know are unhealed, but you refuse to not heal it, you'll still always be moving from your shadow side, even how bright you are. Like, things will always be triggering you left and right. So this is why it's important to honor, to acknowledge, to just be present with that part of you. It's honestly, this is like the most important thing. I have to say this is the most important thing. You have to honor that part of you. You have to love it. You have to send so much love to it, because it just wants to be loved. It just wants to be healed. It wants to be seen. It wants to be acknowledged, because once it's seen and it's acknowledged, then you can finally step into the light of, you can finally start living from your lighter self, knowing that, hey, that's just my shadow speaking. It's thank you for letting me know this, but I don't have to choose this anymore. I know better now. There's more light now that there's I know better now. I can do something differently. Be like, oh, that's just my shadow speaking. Okay, I see you. I know you're there. That's good. I know you're there, but I don't need to choose this path. I can choose better now. Okay, I see you. I know you're there, but I don't have to choose this. I can choose better now. And isn't that great to know that everything that you're doing is now really from a space of authentic truth, a space of I acknowledge my shadows and I see what they tell me, but I'm choosing to do this in a different way. I'm choosing to do this from a healed space, and it's a healed space because I'm no longer doing it from a hurt wound, from a space of hurt, pain, from a space of grief. I'm doing it from a space where I've acknowledged that I am worthy of this. I'm doing it from a loving heart. I'm just, I'm doing it for that, just for that reason. And I think that's important. And that's basically what today has taught me, that all the healing work that I've been doing over the last year or so has helped me push forward to know when it is that the decisions that I'm making are from a space of fear, a space of hurt, a space of denial, a space, maybe sometimes when some of the decisions I'm making are not even mine, when I feel like any decision I'm making is not fully authentically mine, when I know it's partially being impacted by other people, or if it's an impulsive decision. And sometimes, if it's an impulsive decision, and it's been given me more grace to accept that sometimes you don't always get it right. Sometimes you have to sit back a little bit. Sometimes even if you are more healed, you'll still wind up in a position where you're making another decision from an unhealed space. But the difference now is I can tell I'm making it from an unhealed space after, because I can still continue to do the work to even after the decisions made, because healing is this level. There's levels to healing, right? And just every time you go up, you're still going to have another trigger, and that's going to remind you of something that you've had in the past. But now you can always choose to do it differently. And even if you take one step back, the difference is now it's not that one step back that you take isn't the end of the world. It's not going to end your life. You can always, now that you can always get back up. You can always rise back up out of that situation. It's just, you just look at it a different way. You're like, okay, well, it sucks that I'm back here again, but what am I going to learn from this now? How am I going to do this differently still? I know that it's not the end of the road for me. It's just, I'd have to obviously look at this again in a different way, in a new light, from a new perspective. And that's hard sometimes. Oh, what's that? Oh, sorry. And that's hard sometimes, but it definitely is necessary. And that was my message today. I'm not even sure what I'm gonna call this. It's so random. But I hope you guys enjoyed that message. Again, this is Tiana's Divine Truth. Thank you for sticking around, and I hope you guys stay tuned for more. If you guys do like some of the messages that I'm sharing with you, please like below, so I know that you guys are enjoying the messages and you want to stay tuned for more. And thank you guys. Have a great day.